Over here. This is the first and what I hope will be a successful series of brown bags for folks who care about calendars. And we have Jill and Shawn today will be telling us about some calendar competitors. Before we start, because this is sort of a let's build a community kind of thing, I'd like us to just quickly go around the room and say hi, your name and your group. No ice cream flavors this time, if anyone was at the off-site. Although that was fun. So I'm AJ Brush. I'm at MSR. I'm sort of obsessed with calendaring, mostly from a family perspective, but of course we all know family and work intersect.
I Jill House. I'm a college planner for Apple.
Yes.
I'm the college planner for Ohana and the family communication calendar. I'm Elizabeth Drake, and I'm with HED Program Management, and I share AJ's obsession.
Ashish Consul. I'm a program manager with Exchange Server, working on calendaring-related features.
Paul Fischhauser in Exchange, program manager as well.
Jason Mayans, lead PM in Exchange, working on calendaring, and my favorite Qdoba burrito is chicken mole.
Oh, perfect. Lunch food. That's exactly what we should be doing today. Great.
Andy Chen, program manager, Hotmail.
Todd Howden, program manager.
Melinda Nasmati, design manager for Ohana.
Shawn Morrissey, program manager for Windows Calendar.
Suzanne Andrew, product designer for Ohana.
Jake Mann, designer for Ohana.
Liz Lawley, visiting researcher and Next Using Technologies Group.
Kathy Fraser, I use research for Ohana.
Shannon Jones, product management for Ohana.
Cindy Feinberg, in Windows Globalization. Matters Windows Globalization, running the calendar APIs for Whitby and Windows.
Roger Beerwolf, PM for Mac Office, working on calendar.
Sorry, saying to have Mac.
Sam Kawaya, I'm a program manager on SharePoint for Calendar.
I'm Tim LaBelle, the product team manager for the Ohana Plus projects.
I'm Hans Jordahl, program manager in Outlook with a focus on calendar.
And Hanson's going to take the microphone
Sure,
for a second.
I doubt I need it.
No, well, we have a few people watching remotely, maybe.
Oh, okay.
So they missed the intro because that's what you get by coming. But
all right, that's fine. So if you're on the calendar alias, you've already seen an announcement. If you were joined as of about 10 days ago, there's now an intranet site that's designed to provide an overview of the calendaring initiatives across the company. It's http://calendar. Very simple, easy to remember, and the goal of this is basically to have everyone contribute. There's no information from Ohana up there yet, for example. At love to get some. And really provide sort of a high-level, one-stop place to answer the question of what's going on with calendaring at Microsoft. And the two sides of the site are going to be what Microsoft is up to, and also the other side is going to be what is the competitive landscape? What are other competitors out there doing? Yeah, so basically that's the bottom line of what the site's about. And the more people we can get to participate, the better. If you have any questions or need write privileges, they aren't granted by default. Just ask me, and I'll turn that request around right away. And any suggestions for the site, how it could be improved, I'm promoting it pretty much heavily. It's part of my signature now. So, it'd be great. The more people we can get contributing, the better. And we're very open to suggestions. We've really created the site to be a very collaborative effort across all the groups, and then with the goal of eventually all getting us pointed more or less in the same direction. So, but that'll take time. http://calendar. Oh, the calendar is the email alias.
Cal. It started after the offsite. Many of the same goals. Great. Okay. So I have the privilege now of welcoming Shawn to talk about iCal. And we're going to try and keep this kind of informal, so, questions, all that stuff. And if we run out of time, we're also thinking we'll have another one of these because we didn't get a chance to cover Chandler and a few other things. So, and we're also obviously looking for people who'd like to present in future ones.
Thank you, ma'am. So hello, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. AJ asked me to spend probably about 15 minutes or so just walking through iCal. It's a little bit tough to call it competitive just because I have such an affection towards my Mac and iCal, so I don't want to beat up on it too terribly. That said, where is our mouse? There we go. I did want to walk through kind of what I consider to be some of the strengths of iCal as well as some of the opportunities, some things that I think Apple could have done a better job doing. As a quick side note, I finally found out why iCal uses July 17th as an icon. Anybody know why? It was that's what everybody thought. It's actually the date it was released in 2002. So that's why it's July 17th. So if nothing else, you've now learned why the icon is July 17th. I will find out. So let's talk a little bit about the basics of iCal. Probably the main reason it's so popular is that it ships with every Mac sold. It's part of the iLife suite. So by default, it's turned on. There's an icon sitting there. It's one of those things that just about everybody double clicks on as soon as they fire up their Mac for the first time. The three things that it does, and I think does do extremely well, it handles multiple calendars. So they actually went the route, they could have chosen between doing calendars, doing categories. They did calendars. Seems to work extremely well. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like so you can have them displayed at different times. You can have appointments. They can have reminders. The interesting thing that iCal did, their reminders can do a couple things. You can have a sound play. You can have a little message pop up. They also did two things that we're finding to be rather interesting. One is you can actually send email to remind you of an appointment. The other thing that we found was interesting is you can actually fire off other programs, so you can basically use iCal as your scheduler. Why we found this so interesting is, and I'll talk about this in a second, you can subscribe to other calendars. Those other calendars can have these reminders built into their calendars as well. So if you're not real careful, you can have things happening on your computer that you never even knew or actually programmed yourself. And finally, they have to-dos, or I think they actually call them to-dos. They don't use the hyphen, although we do. The other two things that iCal does extremely well, they let you publish your calendars, either to a .Mac address or pretty much to any web DAV server. And what we're seeing is the real popularity, or kind of the hook that keeps people coming back to iCal, is they let you subscribe to calendars, and they've done a really good job building up the infrastructure around subscriptions. And finally, their UI is just extremely clean. It looks like kind of the rest of the metallic brushed metal look and feel of the rest of the iLife suite. It's just extremely intuitive to work with. We haven't found a whole lot of places where we go, God, I wonder why they did it that way. Now, some of the interesting features that we found as we kind of dug around iCal. The first is, by default, it's automatically configured to work well with iSync. iSync is the utility that ships on the Mac that's basically like ActiveSync on Windows. The biggest difference is iSync will actually work with pretty much any Bluetooth mobile phone that we've found. Just about all the major PDAs, they work extremely well with the Palm devices. It actually will sync your calendars very well with your iPod as well. The other place where iSync really shines is if you add a .Mac subscription to your Mac, iSync will actually sync all of the calendars that you've got up to your .Mac address. So it's one of the ways that you can actually have portability of your calendars, so that if you have a couple of Macs, you can actually have all of them syncing through your .Mac account with the calendar information. So pretty cool feature there. Printing. They do an extremely good job with kind of exactly what you'd expect. You can print days, weeks, months. I think they stole the agenda view from Outlook. The one place where I thought it was pretty interesting the way they handled it is they do printing the same way they do the calendar views. So in the print dialog setup, you can actually tell it which of the calendars you want to print, and you can kind of sit there and watch print preview change, so you can get exactly the calendars printed that you want to. The way they implemented search, they actually have it built inside of the product itself, and they've also enabled Spotlight. Spotlight is a technology that's kind of pervasive through the Mac, so that from any other application you could actually search for calendars, events, to-dos as well. When it finds them, you can actually double-click on them and go directly into iCal, so it makes it extremely easy to kind of find all your appointments and events. There's three places that I think they've done a pretty interesting job with their OS integration. What they call auto events is they have a little application called the address book. If you go into address book, pick someone's name and drag it and drop it onto the calendar, what do you guys think should happen? Exactly. So it sets up a meeting with the person, and it actually, one of the things you can do is you can invite people to meetings. So it automatically sets up their email address to invite them, and as soon as you click save, it sends off the email. It's a very, very natural kind of feature that they've enabled with that.
Do they set up emails or do they do iCal requests?
They actually do emails.
They don't have a request response model.
They do if the other person is using iCal as well. They've got this little notification service that runs, and so you can actually track to see if someone else is using iCal and they accept, you'll actually get the notice back that in your little notification area that they've accepted that appointment.
And they show up.
What's that?
But they are not using iCal.
No, not for the notification stuff, right? Because there is no like the event to-do kind of thing for notifications to come back.
If I use iCal and I invite someone, does it show up on the invite automatically?
Yes. Yeah. Once they've accepted it in their email. Right? It's not like, how you guys have got pending or whatever, right? With the kind of slash bar. They've got to actually accept it in their email. The other place I think they've done some interesting integration work with the address book is inside the address book, and I'll show you what this looks like in a second, you can actually tag someone's birthday in their contact information. iCal will go through and parse all of the birthday information, create a special calendar called Birthdays, and automatically show those on the appropriate day. Just kind of a nice little, gosh, they thought of everything. With OS X, they came up with something called the Automator, which is kind of like a system-wide VBA language for the Mac, and you could actually automate different programs to do different things. You can set up scripts to go across programs and whatnot. iCal by default is automatically Automator enabled, so you can do things like other programs can actually delete iCal events. You can grab event summaries. You can set up filters, so you can actually do searches and return them to your own app through Automator. It's, as best as I can tell, there hasn't been a lot of kind of groundswell around the Automator actions against iCal. I think once somebody kind of figures out, hey, look at all this information that we could go mine and do interesting stuff with, I think that'll change very, very quickly. So there's, as I mentioned on the one of the bigger popularity features is the ability to subscribe to calendars, and there's three sites that are probably the most popular right now. There's Apple's own site, which I'll show you in a second, which has got a huge database of these calendars that you can subscribe to. There's also two sites that I think are even more interesting, iCal Share and iCalX.com. These sites both allow you to send them other calendars. So it's kind of more of a communal effort to set up different calendars, and then you can actually go to these sites, subscribe to them, and have somebody else kind of maintain your calendars for you. Okay, with that said, let me show you what iCal looks like. And PC3, right? So this is what iCal looks like kind of as soon as you fire it up. It's, like I said, it's got the day, week, and month views that you can switch between. On the far left side for you guys, that's the list of the calendars. Straight out of the box, there's two created for you. One's called Work and one's called Home. I've, just because we've been doing a lot of work with calendars, added quite a few more. Below that is a date picker. It's a pretty brain-dead date picker, although you can expand that window to actually have more months displayed.
Did you rename your home? Is it personal?
I did. I think we've renamed and deleted and updated multiple times. In the middle is the calendar window. At the top, this is where the all-day appointments go. I think they could have handled it a little bit more interesting than they did. Basically, if you get any more than 2 in that week view, you get a scroll bar that's way over here. So it's we did a little bit of our own usability testing. It's one of the places where people kind of went, I should think Apple would have done something a little different than that. By default, to-dos are actually turned on. I don't have any in here right now. You can turn them off. And then as soon as you start entering information, they use the drawer type feature to bring out the details of an appointment. So, like I said, the calendars, we'll go ahead and start turning some of them on so you can see what the way the UI handles when we start to overlay multiple events. The interesting thing is, as I highlight one of these calendars, the UI will actually change any events from the highlighted calendar kind of get a bit more opaque, and they get a bit more bold. So you can kind of start seeing the relationship between the appointments that are highlighted and the calendar they came from. To create a calendar is pretty straightforward. I click on the plus sign down here, and we can call this Demo Calendar. You'll see that over here this is one thing I don't like about the UI. You'll notice there's nothing in the details. There's actually a lot of detailed information you can put in about a calendar, but there's really no visual clues that you can do that. Kind of one of the other areas I went, yeah, I think they do a little bit better than that. But you'll also notice that a couple to-dos have shown up. The way that iCal handles to-dos is they actually associate it with a calendar. So when I turn the calendar off, both the events and the to-dos get turned off as well. So that's one of those things that kind of takes a while to get used to when you're starting to figure out, okay, where did all my to-dos go? Let's see. Let me show you how to create an appointment. It's pretty straightforward. Figure out what time you want to start. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can either kind of do the click and drag. There's some nice visual indicators of start time and end time. They did one thing I thought was interesting. It's very different from the Outlook model. If in iCal, if you start to drag before the beginning time, all of a sudden the beginning time changes to the end time, and then they let you drag the start time to some other place, which we thought was kind of interesting. Of course, after that, then we can rename the event. It changes the title, and now over here you can see all the details. This is where I can actually save some of the different detail information. I can change the alarm. Here's where you can do the send a message with sound, open a file, run a script. There's actually been some interesting applications already written that actually take advantage of this feature. There's one that's called iRecord Now, which is a little app where you can set it up to kind of find different audio programs broadcast on the internet. I always like to listen to This American Life on NPR. So I've actually got iCal set up to, on Saturdays at 11 a.m., there's an event that fires that says, start the sound recorder on the Mac, capture This American Life, and save it off. Okay, so I've got my calendar set up. The way that we go publish it is I go up to Calendar and I say Publish. It picks up the name. By default, it says it's going to publish on the .Mac account. I can change that to a private server. We've actually got one over in our build lab.
Is the space on .Mac offered for free?
No, I think right now you get a .Mac account. It's like $100 a year for the subscription. It's kind of all bundled in together. It's you get the web space, you get an email address, you get antivirus protection. But it's interesting. You can't pick and choose between them, right? It's like an either all or nothing thing.
What's it doing here? It's like a HTTP post or something?
Yeah, basically it's a file copy to a web DAP server.
So it's using that.
Yep. And I'll say publish. Hopefully this will work and somebody hasn't taken our server offline. So here's the notification we get that we've actually been published. The other interesting thing you can do is you can actually send a piece of email saying, hey, everybody, here's where the calendar is. They click on that, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. And then I will go up and we will actually subscribe to a calendar.
And does it do just the ICS file, or does it also put up an HTML representation of
If you're using a .Mac account, it's basically all server-side backloaded. So if you're using a .Mac account, it's sending the ICS file. What Apple's done is they've actually got the HTML conversion on the backside.
But the client, it posts to a different website, well, doesn't post up HTML.
No, it's literally just copying the ICS file itself to a WebDAV server. So this is the iCal site on Apple. They have got a ton of calendars already created. It's scary how simple it is to subscribe. I go pick up the Mariners calendar. The link itself is what's called a WebCal link. It's pretty much just a protocol hack that says, don't send this to the browser, send this to iCal. I go through, iCal figures it out, I go subscribe. It's actually copying the file down. I can tell it how often I want to go up and grab a new copy of the file. It's all pretty brain dead stuff. I mean, there's no synchronization going on. It's literally just file copies back and forth. I press OK, and there's the Mariner schedule. So what we're seeing is people are adding, what we've seen in the usability studies is people go through and they'll add about 15 or 20 calendars, and then the next day they'll delete about half of those. Right? So it's kind of like the shiny new toy that you immediately get overwhelmed with. So other than that, I think that was everything I wanted to show you guys. Any questions about iCal? I knew you were going to ask that. Yeah, it is Gregorian only. The reason being is they have tried to stay as close to the iCalendar format as they can, and with iCalendar basically punting on non-Gregorian, they're staying away from it as well.
Have you tried keeping alarms on when you download or upload? Like, does it actually work if you're syncing?
It does.
I mean, if you heard an alarm on an A, it won't also alert you?
No, it will. It goes machine by machine, basically, because so there's nothing that says inside the file it says this alarm is already fired. When I move it over to another machine, iCal's going through and says, okay, when do I start? You know, how do I parse through and go figure out the alarms? And I fire it off everywhere. Yeah. Great question. So this icon here kind of looks like the radio beacon. That's publish. This icon, the arrow that's kind of coming back around, that's subscribe. And then there's a special icon for the birthdays as well. It's supposed to be a little cake with a candle sticking up. Yeah. They also do. They also make use of these. They actually overload these icons when you're refreshing the subscriptions or when you're updating the subscriptions. Kind of has the little spinning waiting sign. And then if there's an error, they put the little red exclamation point next to the icon.
Is there a way to copy or move items between calendars?
There's the kind of the kludgy way is I pick an event, and then I just change which calendar it's on. Okay. On the subscriptions, the way they come down by default is they're read-only, and iCal tries to do everything it can to kind of keep those in read-only mode, just so you don't go through and make a bunch of changes, and then at the next synchronization they all get wiped out. So you kind of have to change this, turn off the subscription, make the changes.
Yeah, two people can't own the same calendar.
Two people cannot own the same calendar.
How does iCal deal with firing events or notifications for two machines at different time zones?
It depends. And this is one of the places where it gets a little entertaining to work with iCal. They actually have time zone support built into iCal, and it's not turned on by default. So the first thing you have to do is you have to turn on what they call time zone support. And then for any event that you want to kind of pay attention to that, you actually have to tell it which time zone you want it to pay attention to. So you actually have to go in and say, okay, for anything that I want to be time zone aware, right, I actually have to start setting the time zone for that. Okay? Exactly. exactly. And then the iCalendar format itself will store, if you give it time zone information, it will store that with you. You move it to another machine, you change the time zones, it does all the proper math. Exactly. Yeah, you can actually go through and say which time zone you're changing to, and it will actually update all the events. Yeah, I know, they use the map. It's the first thing everybody using a PC or working with Windows says is, oh my God, they use the map. Yeah. And now it's just changed all the events to that time zone, wherever we're. Yeah.
Wow, that's bad.
Yeah, it actually, it gets worse. As you start to shrink things up, it turns them into little dots. No, they never show overflows. They get rid of information first, right? And then as they can, they start to bring more and more detailed information back in. Yeah. Double click on the day, it goes back to the day view.
Before, like different, like.
Oh, they slaughter it the same way everybody does.
They don't get any, notice
Specify what you're returning, things like that.
Yeah, recurrences in the iCalendar format, it's like that one area that they left for the last 15 minutes of the conference. The recurrence rules themselves, if you do kind of an easy recurrence like every Thursday, the iCalendar format is pretty good about that. If you start doing things like every Thursday in June, then skip July, go to August, it gets really bad. The rules start growing and growing and growing. So you can say day, week, month, or year, right? Those are the easy ones. The custom one is I love the way they handled this. So you can set the frequency, and then you can do this. You can actually have multiple days selected.
That's nice though. It doesn't. At least it doesn't present you with everything at once.
No. So you can't have. The only way you can do exceptions then is you have to create the recurrence first, and then basically go manually delete the ones where you don't want the thing to. Yeah.
But it's nice to have the quick access.
Yep. Yep.
One thing, probably said on that previous view with the dots, which is terrible. But you also looking at multiple calendars on the same.
Yep.
You're not looking at one schedule, and it cleans it up significantly. It's a lot more
Yeah.
reasonable. It's bad.
Yeah, and I will say, of all the kind of personal calendars, iCal, Thunderbird, a couple of the others, I think iCal handles kind of that information overflow as gracefully or more gracefully than anybody else does.
What about what's
They actually have that support as well. So you can have the 5-day weeks, the 7-day weeks, and then you can have the week starts on support as well. And that all gets reflected in the UI as well. That's all built into their preferences dialog. Now, what they don't have is if I'm just doing like a 4-day work week or something, right? Then their weekends don't shade. Good enough?
Thanks, Shawn.
All right. AP2?
Oh yeah, I think.
There. Yeah,
I know, it'll crush my poor little Mac.
Exactly.
So I'm going to get through as many of these as we can and start with Yahoo, then move on to Sunbird and move on to Trumba. And Hans has looked at a bunch of these as kind of from the program management side, so if he can answer questions I can't, or just he'll pipe in with interesting features from his perspective on each of these, especially on Trumba, because we both just finished a review on that. So I wanted to start with Yahoo. I think this group, especially kind of the back row of the Hotmail people, are super familiar with Yahoo, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I did want to focus on the fact that communication services, and particularly this was a review I did of the mail client for Outlook, is kind of a fraction, a real tiny fraction of what it is that Yahoo does. If you look at the Yahoo core businesses, it is a subsegment of their consumer services market. So it really gives you an idea of where this plays in their overall mission and mandate. And this is one of the things that Alpa Aguilar, who sits in the MSN business unit, does a really nice job of illustrating of just how many different pies Yahoo has their hands in and how big kind of a competitor they're becoming on a broad variety of fronts. So I just wanted to put that in perspective before diving into mail, because when you look at mail, you'll notice they're a really compelling PIM. And it's kind of interesting that they're this tiny subsegment, but they do a really good job of nailing the PIM experience, especially for a web-based client when you compare them to other web-based clients. So as a compelling PIM, they've got quick entry points, search fields for every module, printing, and personalization, just these kind of themes you notice throughout kind of the web space. But calendar in particular, and you'll notice a theme from what Shawn talked about, from what I'll talk about with these apps, that calendars in general, and we talked about this at the offsite, are really starting to focus on publishing, sharing, this idea of multiplicity of calendars that you can get into your calendar, and this idea of time and task management. And Yahoo's no different. They have tasks on the calendar. They have tasks that your task well actually lives on the calendar. And they do extensive sharing support, overlay support, category support, and then kind of a free busy service that they offer. What's not so good is, you'll notice as you go through this, tons of ads, very distracting in the calendar UI, and constant upsell messages. And so this is more applicable to some of their mail features, but you'll notice you open a box and it asks you, well, this feature is great, and if you really want it, you can pay me $9.95 for it. So I wanted to start, this is a slide where I'll switch to the actual app so you can see it if we have any extra questions on it, but just so I can hit all my points, I wanted to do these as slides. This is kind of their basic view. You get into it, you notice that ads kind of swamp you and keep changing. They're very flash-based ads along this side, really prominent, take some prominence away from the UI. Typical calendar, you got your month view, you got your month picker along the side, very typical view of just your items. So what I want to point out on this is how easy it is to quickly add an event. And this is something that, from Outlook's perspective, we really kind of suffer from. There is no quick one-line entry for Outlook calendar events. And so we thought this was a really innovative way to do it. You can just, that's all the vital information that you really need in an app, in an item, added right along the bottom really quickly. If you do want to edit a full event, you get the normal set of options that you would expect to get. So you get the title, the event type, the date, time, recurrence, location, etc. But what's really interesting is you can invite people. And this is where Yahoo starts to do some really innovative stuff by making themselves almost an Evite-esque competitor. So you have your invite/find free times. If you have people sharing calendars out with you, and I'll show you that later on in this, you can see their free times and you can coordinate that way, a lot like the Exchange Free Busy service. On the other hand, you can also just invite people like you would with Evite. So if I wanted to find free times, it would bring me to this kind of bulk calendar that just says busy, busy, busy for this calendar that I have access to. Or I can enter an ID and see multiple calendars. But if I want to invite people, it takes me down to the invitation dialog. I can insert people from my address book, kind of this idea of being a complete PIM. And I can, enter the email addresses, find free times. So when I go through the invitation dialog, I can request RSVPs, and then I get to notify them. And when you see Trumba, you'll notice that one of the things that's really nice about this, that even though Trumba is very focused on sharing and emailing, that Yahoo actually beats them on, is I can customize all of this. So I can say, here's my message, here's exactly what I want to say, and it doesn't act as an ad for the service, and it gives all the vital information. On the receiving end, this is what this looks like. I can say, oh, Jill's inviting you to this, and then it says, will you attend? Big RSVP at the bottom. So I go, because I'm not a Yahoo user, to a sort of a generic page that takes me in, says, do you want to sign in, sign up, will you attend, etc. And then on the recipient end, as the person who set this up, I just love this. Right on my calendar, I can see who's accepted, who's declined, and who I haven't heard from, which is just especially from the Outlook perspective, it's just beautiful UI. You know, and we haven't seen this in any other competitor. That's probably, to me, the thing that Yahoo does that really knocks it out of the park on this experience. Anyway, so we move into, they have a week view, and I'll explain the different coloring in a minute. Standard week view, pretty standard looking month view. They have an event list, again, just kind of nice little basic calendar features. And then they have a task list. So this is really interesting for Hans and I because it took us a while to make this connection. On the Outlook front, you know, one of the reasons this becomes really interesting is because it took us a long time to figure out the tasks belong with calendars. And what you'll notice is it took competitors no time to figure that out, and most of our competitors have this feature. But from our perspective, it's pretty interesting that tasks is right there along with your calendar view. And in fact, you can set and say, show me when I completed them. Show it right on my calendar and show, you know, options around that. So I go to my calendar and the things I've done, right on the calendar showing me kind of a record of what I've done. And then along the other side, this is just my roaming list of tasks. Quick to add things, quick to search things, etc. Kind of a nice way of doing the task time management features within Yahoo. Can also do a lot of personalization. And I think this is, you see this more in family consumer calendars than you see this in other business calendars, but it is really interesting to note that they, not extensive, but they have a little bit of an array of options for what you can do to personalize your calendar. So I'm into fine arts. I click fine arts, and you'll notice, just like I would a wall calendar, every month I get a different theme, and it's pretty. Then I wanted to show the time guides. So time guides you can think of as subscribed calendars. So I go to my time guides, and I want to edit or hide them, and it brings me to this dialog. And so I can choose financial events, friends calendars, again, think of this as the sharing experience, holiday, sports teams, etc. And I can choose whether or not I want to merge those. So this is what Hans calls overlay mode, or side-by-side mode. I can just have them as two different options available. So this is kind of a neat little way to do it. As I bring it up, and it's like, I think everybody uses the Mariners calendars in demo. It's kind of required. So here's my Mariners, my obligatory Mariner schedule alongside. But you also see I have Apple's earnings, and I have other different interesting information. Or I can put it right on my calendar. And that's a weather calendar, Apple earnings, these all-day event type things, and then specific events right alongside what I'm doing. So kind of an interesting way of laying that out. And then we get to the actual sharing. So there's sharing in terms of like getting somebody else's calendar, published data onto your calendar, so Mariner schedule, Apple earning, holidays, etc. Then there's like my personal group of friends and their sharing. So through here, just to remind you, one click simple, right there. You'll see this again in Trumba. Sorry, yeah?
Are they using, you chose Apple for earnings, which suggests that they're using actual iCal format to publish and subscribe, because Apple's likely not using Yahoo to publish their earnings.
No, this is just a standard feed that they get of just news. I don't think it's iCal. Do you know?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what it is. I chose Apple just because it seemed appropriate for a Yahoo demo to choose Apple rather than Microsoft. But you can get any company off of the stock exchange to get their financial information, and that's kind of what this.
So you included Mariners as well.
Yep.
I'm just suggesting that so I can see how Yahoo would have to do all the stock announcements. Are they doing something? Did you just choose Mariners and manually do that yourself, or is there really a feed that they have for the sports source too?
So everything they have is available through this time guides. No, so you go through your time guide, and I'll show this on the actual app in a second, just so we can discover together. But you just go through and you add, and it just gives you a list of ones that it has available. So it's just the ones. It's Trumba does the same thing too, where they have their own repository that they're working on. Yeah. So one step simple to activate your sharing, and you get brought to this dialog. So you can say, friends can view it, special friends can modify it, and you have all these different options. They get a star because they're special. And you can choose your event sharing, and this becomes especially interesting when you're setting up a new event, that you can choose this per event or per calendar and say private, show as busy, or public, and then that's on a per event basis as well. And then you type in other Yahoo user IDs. So this is only within the Yahoo network that you can do this. So you enter their Yahoo ID, click go, and you can get their calendar. So I go over, I get somebody else's calendar, and now it tells me, here's where your calendar is. So if I can point anybody I want up to that calendar, whether or not they're a Yahoo user. But if they're a Yahoo user, I can then bring their calendar into my calendar.
And then so that's kind of it for Yahoo. It's kind of a finishing screen. This is the calendar. This is someone else's calendar that I now have access to. I typed in their ID, they gave me ability to see it, and I only have permission to see busy, for example, so I can see when they're available. So that's it for Yahoo, yeah.
Do they have like a click functionality in that UI, so you can click and add an event, or just use the add event UI at the bottom of that previous?
They do, so you can add an event through here, this one up here, or you can do the quick. You can also edit them, obviously, once they're in there.
But you can't like double click on the template in the graphical view?
Nope.
What if you click on that?
The add button.
Oh, there's
So that's the quick add. This one? Oh yeah, look at that. Awesome.
Still have such a time.
Yeah.
If you're in VCO on the website, or maybe UI, maybe you can click on the hour and date.
In Alex 12, you're going to have a click to add UI that switches on the mouse over after a delay of probably about a second.
Jill, what's the print experience?
Print experience. Very nice. They give you a printable view. So they strip out everything except the calendar data, and then you just print it.
What about the personalization, the pictures and stuff? Can you carry through too?
That's all gone. So it's just the data, which is kind of nice because you lose the ads too. All right. I will move on to the easier demo, which is Sunbird, because there's very little in Sunbird. So I want to talk quickly so Mozilla is pretty, especially, again, very Outlook-centric, and I apologize for this. Mozilla is really kind of interesting for us, because right now they are reported to have 5% install base in the consumer home email market. It's probably high given the number of downloads they have versus the number of consumer clients available, but it is interesting to us that they're getting that kind of mind share so that people see them as second only to OE and Outlook. It's kind of an interesting stat and a barometer for us on how people see the Thunderbird space playing in with this. A lot of that is driven by Firefox's success. And you can sort of debate how successful Firefox has been recently, but certainly in terms of like wake-up call to the IE team and just different pressure forces, they've been kind of an interesting one to watch. Lots of languages, lots of platforms. The more interesting thing from our perspective that they're doing is they're merging Thunderbird, which is their pure email client, and they're merging it with Sunbird, which I'll show you, which is their calendaring client, to create this project called Lightning. And so in Lightning, you finally get this full Outlook OE PIM experience available to you. That was supposed to be out by now. It's not. They're very behind in this, but we're kind of keeping an eye on it just to make sure that they don't re-pick up momentum around this. As for Sunbird, right now they're on version 0.2, so you will see the limitations of this through the demo. It's for example, one of the features that they tout is you can create an event. It's awesome. You can, so again, so it's very basic at this point, but you can, very interesting to note that even in 0.2, one of the things they really that they really pushed on was being able to share out your calendar. It's very awkward, it's very geeky. You have to do it through publishing it to a server and kind of it's kind of a do-it-yourself model, not very streamlined, but interesting to note that their top priorities were create an event, create a task, and share a calendar. Top things you'll see through here. Limited functionality, you'll see, but what makes it kind of interesting is they have this email calendar reminders. Task list is really interesting. Again, even at 0.2, they've merged this time management concept with the calendar concept, which is interesting from our point of view. Lots of options are there, but they don't work. And you can include a URL in an appointment or a task.
What is restore natural order?
So if you mess up, over in here, I'll show this in the real app, but this is, again, just to help me guide. If you go through here and you've really messed up your task list, you can go to restore natural order and it'll put it back to all the defaults. It doesn't do anything now, but in the future, it will restore natural order. This is what Sunbird looks like. I'll switch to the real app in a second, but I just wanted to bring this up so I could hit on the major points. Not super fancy. Doesn't do a lot at this point. More interesting where they're going, and so I'll show their roadmap in a second. But you can add an event, all the standard things you would expect to. You can email your alarm to people. You can put on whatever calendars you have available to you in your whatever calendars you have available to you, and you get an alarm, so you can get a reminder alarm when something has fired. Same with tasks. You have a bunch of the interesting features for tasks, so you put all your different task information. You can sort by priority, and then you can do repetitions through Sunbird. Again, nothing earth-shattering right now, and I'll switch to the app in a minute, and my screen resolution's wonky, so it's easier to do with slides, but nothing really interesting, more interesting where they're going. So if you look kind of where they've said they're going in 0.9, 1.0, and 2.0, you can ignore the timeline since it clearly hasn't come to pass, but it's, again, more interesting where they're attempting to go. Standard calendar stuff in 0.9, so really focusing on making this a best of breed or a competitive calendar in their next version, their 0.9 version. More interesting is 1.0, where they really start their process of integrating with Thunderbird and in integrating with other desktop PIM applications, aka you see accept Outlook invitations up there. And then calendar 2.0 is all around bringing other calendars in together. So invitations, multiple people, synchronization, all these kind of advanced sharing options and features. In theory, all of this was supposed to be out by now. Obviously, none of it is out right now, which is why we're still showing 0.2. But it is interesting to note these are kind of their grand plans. They have a little bit of discrepancy between what they do with Thunderbird and what they do with Sunbird that they need to work out. One of those is categories. So Thunderbird has labels, Sunbird has categories. Merging those kinds of things, I think, will be part of the Lightning effort. But just worth noting that right now they're a little bit at loggerheads on some terminology and how they focus things. So Sunbird, you can see in all its glory. Very simple, very basic UI. I can look at all my different calendars. I can really easily add new calendars. It'll show calendars concurrent. Like I say, it doesn't do a lot yet. But I can see different views on the different day from my different calendars. If you want to restore natural order, you go here, and it would do something in theory. And then my other favorite, just when somebody asked about time zones, I just love this. This doesn't do anything yet, but in theory, this is where time zones will go. I just kind of love. I think that's awesome. We're just going to put this here because nobody wants to forget time zones. And if you read their developer chit-chat, you know, just kind of the forums and the message blogs, nobody wants to do time zones because apparently it's hard. So you see all this chit-chat between them, like, we really need people to do time zones. Oh, I'm busy building an extension. We really need people to do time zones. I built some stickers. It's like, exactly. It's like, please help us with time zones. Different options around views, where you can publish your calendar, alarms you can set off, and then obviously the general options. And all the categories you have available. Yeah.
Okay. It was the first day of the week fixed. It's something we publish in Windows according to the locale and the culture, that they find a way to override that. They picked that up.
I will show you my all-time favorite feature in Sunbird, if I can get it to work. I love this. I think that is the wonkiest time picker dialogue I have ever seen. So military time, I consider wonky to your discretion. Should you prefer this? I am not beating up on you. Having said that, I think that's wonky. So you even have more options. But you can pick 2 o'clock. I know, I just think that's a little wonky. Let's see what more is. Because what I wanted to pick... So I think we all have our work cut out for us to catch up to this kind. I don't usually pick on competitors because I think there's things they do that are interesting. I love that. That's just so not intuitive and awesome.
Dismiss after 2 clicks. Dismiss after a minute.
I don't think it will dismiss.
What if it happens like minutes and then hours?
Ah. Awesome. You have to do the same for this one. Less. Awesome. What's that?
Microsoft has to write up like 500 buttons. Developers don't kill themselves.
Anyway, it's it's one, so I'll stop with this one.
Okay, or
I can do you just the general business overview of Trumba.
yeah, let me just check that schedule.
So Trumba, a lot of noise about Trumba recently since they just launched. They're a Seattle-based company. They got a lot of ex-Microsoft and specifically ex-Office people in their group. So it's kind of interesting from our perspective just seeing what they've been working on as they get back in touch with people. This is a weird competitor because we don't really see them as a competitor as a company per se because they're in touch with us. They want to be an ISV, et cetera. But just kind of interesting to note what they're doing. Have a lot of funding. They just released on June 10th this year. It's a service-based program, so you can get a free trial for 60 days, but otherwise you pay $39.95 for the service. They're going to introduce a monthly fee and a family discount plan, but we don't know what those are yet. Just the initial feedback they've gotten on this product has been so focused, and you'll even see in like my big takeaways that it's expensive. Because Trumba is really centered around this idea of you being the pivot of an organization, and the idea of Trumba is that they don't necessarily care if everyone in this room is a Trumba user. That's not necessarily important to them. What is important is that AJ, who's scheduling calendar Brownbags, is a Trumba user, so that everyone else gets access to Trumba through AJ, and AJ is the primary scheduler. So if you're an organizer, if you own a social club, you're really important to Trumba, and they want you to use their calendar service and publish an email through Trumba, and then by merit of that, you will sort of bring the Pied Piper, bring the rats in. So the problem with that, because they focus on families and because they focus on social organizations, it is very expensive. So as soon as I'll use your family calendar, if you have a family of just 2 heads of household, that's $80 a year, because you really do need your own Trumba calendar if you're planning on scheduling events on your own. The second is if you have kids in the family who are accountable for their own schedule, which is not a given, but is a potential, you are looking at $120, $160. It's a lot of dollars a year to be paying per year. So I think that line has come out recently in their press reports, probably more due to the fact that press has really hounded on this than necessarily something they thought of up front, but worth noting that they're working on that. So their targets, well, their key features, unlimited calendar creation. So you can have an unlimited number of calendars that you create. Publish your group calendars of web pages, private calendar sharing, email calendars. Lots of work done around Outlook Sync. So this is really interesting for us. There's 3 different ways you can get information in and out of Outlook and Trumba. So that's really interesting. And then you can import contacts. The user targets, families, first and foremost, really focused on the family, especially if you use Outlook. You're a big target for Trumba. Second is social clubs. Do you run a church group? Do you run a volunteer group? Do you run a team or a club? And then the third is the social organization, so a church, a school, a team, etc. The main tenets then are connected calendars, so tackling the problem of having all these disparate calendars that stay connected and stay refreshed and stay up to date, multiple calendars. The calendar UI is really built for the sharing model. It's not great calendar UI, but it's fine. It's fine for what it's proposing to do, which is share multiple calendars. Sharing, and then these issues. Trumba really only works, everyone you know, if every organization you belong to uses Trumba. Every organization you belong to won't use Trumba until everyone they know is using Trumba. Real chicken and egg they've got going. So they really are dependent on Metcalfe's Law to get this up and started. It's expensive, and it really is, to pick on AJ again, it's her job to make sure she's super fastidious about keeping her calendar up to date. So if you're lax at all, Trumba fails you pretty darn quickly. So to do this, I don't know how well this will work given my resolution. Okay. Let me just see if I can set this a little bit bigger so this shows a little bit better. Does anyone like the new view, Shawn? Does anyone like the funky category view? On control panel. Break anything. Oh, cool. Okay. So for Trumba, you'll notice from the start, very typical standard calendar. But what I really want to focus on for this, given that I have 15 minutes, first, Hans puts this really well. It's really easy to get lost here because it's very flat. It's just as easy to add an event as it is to publish your calendar. which is either really exciting or really scary, depending on how you look at it. But it's super flat. The UI, there's not a lot of depth. And again, this is not a pro or a con. It's just really interesting. There's not a lot of depth behind those options. It's all one-click shopping. So you click publish. That one takes a while. But you click email. One click later, you are emailing everyone in your social group about your calendar. So very standard kind of look and feel to it. You can toggle through, and you can have 3 days, or you can have a week, or you can have all these different views available to you. Nothing terribly fancy there. What I do want to show you is along the side some of your options. So I mentioned you can create multiple calendars. Note how easy. I want to create a new calendar. So I tell it create a new calendar. I name it Demo 2. I can set any of these options, tell me if any of them are interesting, but otherwise, okay. And I will have a new calendar. And in fact, will pop me right to my new calendar, and you'll notice my new calendar is now the main calendar I'm working in. So it's taking me out of my normal calendar. It assumes, oh, I've created this, I must really want to work in it. So I said that the UI is really set up for sharing and having things available. So I'll leave it as it is. I want to go to this one because it'll make it a little bit easier. So we'll go to my main calendar. And I can turn all of these on. So let's go to week. Hopefully this won't get too bad. I can go and I can add all these different calendars. And you'll see they just start showing up. Now, so those are just calendars I've created. What then becomes interesting is, like I say, it's all about getting data in and getting data out. I can also subscribe to calendars. So if I've subscribed to the Art Museum, it will publish. This is from their set of published calendars. And so in the same way that I could create a calendar with one click, I can browse their public calendar. So this is where they become an iCal share competitor. What they're trying to do is have you post as a social organization all of your calendars up to this repository. So you see there aren't that many calendars. I think there's about 200 right now. But we'll go to the obligatory sports, and we'll drill into professional. You'll notice, again, not a lot of social organizations yet, but that's really where they're trying to push people. But I go to professional, and they have some poor intern who has entered all of these. You'll see her name on all of these, and I'm like, wow, that had to be a project. Guess what I did this summer? I can tell you where the Minnesota Twins are playing all year long. So I go to the Mariners schedule. One click later, and you'll see this is really interesting. They're really trying to push this so that anybody can use this. This is why this is an iCal competitor. So note that I can add an event, and because I'm a Trumba user, I'll have some other options. But it pulls up this dialog. So you can get to a public website, you get to this directory, and you add an event, and it suddenly gives you a bunch of options. So you can add it to your Outlook calendar, you can add it to your Mac calendar, you can add it to Hotmail, you can add it to Trumba, or you can email the event information to yourself if you don't have any of those calendars.
I will receive a Hotmail meeting request. Maybe the Hotmail people. So what's more interesting is you'll note they have a variety of options available through, if I can get this to go back, through Outlook. This was the one that really impressed us in terms of thinking about them. So there's an Event Plus, which will sync a number of events down from one calendar into Outlook. There's Open It directly in Outlook, which just opens it as an Outlook meeting request, or you can email it to yourself as an Outlook meeting request. So really interesting. The other thing you can do is you can sync it to Outlook. So they have calendar sync as well as event sync. Event sync is to get events into your Outlook. Calendar sync is to keep Trumba One calendar and Outlook in sync. So it pushes everything from your Outlook calendar down into Trumba and pushes, in theory, everything from Trumba up to Outlook. I say in theory because no one on our team has gotten that to work yet. Having said that, in theory, that is what they propose that they do. The other interesting thing, can you do that? Boy, we haven't gotten it to work at all. I'm thinking it's because we're dog food or something weird. But they swear by the fact that they work, so. Can you do it at an event level instead of a whole calendar? For Outlook, no. For Outlook, it's a calendar. And in fact, the calendar can only have one relationship to another Trumba calendar. So if you say Trumba, the Outlook calendar for Office 12 is going to the Office 12 Trumba calendar, that's the only connection there can be. But I can also subscribe to this calendar, and I should get that same
oh, I've successfully subscribed because I'm logged into Trumba. So it's just added this to my Trumba calendar. And so if we go back to Trumba, and this is where I feel like Hans's comment is really applicable. It's taken me out of the Trumba UI, and now I challenge you to figure out a good way for me to get back to Trumba. It's really taken me off the course to go browse these public calendars, and now that I'm in a calendar, it's really hard to figure out how to get back. My best attempt at this has been to go right back to that Trumba because I'm already signed in, but if you're not signed in, that just takes you to the Trumba homepage. It's a little bit wonky. But you will see along the bottom here that it has added, in theory, the Mariners calendar, and so there's a Mariners in New York game tonight. Since I'm running low, why don't I show these three? These are the three most important things they do. So you can see text, etc. Schedule my email, so I can edit. I can have a scheduled time that I send out events from Trumba, and I can say every Wednesday. Think of this as for like a soccer team. If every week you have a set of games and practices, then you would want to set up. You would want to set up a schedule of times and release it. Every Monday, send out the new schedule. Just sends it out, shows me a preview of what I'm sending, etc. So let me quickly get through. Share is just as simple. I pick a contact, poor Hans. I'm going to add him to my shared list. And now he can view and edit. And because he's a user, I get his little star. He gets a lot of special privileges. And finally, you can. The trick with that is you can't see what they've done. Where they really fall down is that reciprocity, that I can send you soccer practice, but I don't know if you've accepted. You and I can co-own a calendar and both have read-write control over it, but I don't know what you've changed or when you last touched it or if you reset up the email schedule event. So doing that two-part sharing can be a little bit tricky. So, right. That seems like something that they will address, but worth noting. So then if I want to publish a calendar, I come through this 5 different parts. First, I choose my template of what I want it to look like. So I can choose, and you can kind of see the organizations they're going after by looking at this list. You've got news, you've got performance schedule, conference schedule, just some ideas they're putting out there for you. So that's changed my view. I can change colors, I can change fonts. Then I go to my customize my web page. This is for the Trumba. So when I go to the public repository of calendars, this is what it will look like in that public repository. So I have a certain amount of control over that. I can do grouping. I can do mix in events from other calendars that are available to me. So I can publish 2 calendars at once. And then I set it up to be published and how I want it to most easily be found. I'm going to skip publishing it just because no real point.
Only to the Trumba website.
Only to the Trumba website.
So I can't post a calendar. If I'm an organization, volunteer organization, I can't really post a calendar within my own website.
You can through their developer program. So their developer program has a way for you to get in touch and publish the Trumba calendar on your website. So the Museum of Flight does this, where if you go up to the Museum of Flight schedule of events, they have a Trumba calendar hosted in their UI. Yep. And if you go through their FAQ, they have like published Trumba calendar, and it has a list of how to do that. But through this is all meant to push data into their public repository.
You mentioned the level of fastidiousness is increased with Trumba in a shared, like you would need to actually, there's a lot of onus on the calendar owner to not drop the ball at all. Mm-hmm. Is there more need for keeping on the ball with Trumba than other calendar sharing situations? Like what is it about Trumba that makes it actually more important that you stay with your schedule?
It's a really good point because I think in general all calendars face this, and electronic calendars in particular. What strikes me as particular to Trumba is that in theory, even by the name one calendar, they want all of your information to be housed on Trumba, and then it pushes out like a hub and to its spokes, right? So if this isn't your main calendar, it loses its value, I think, quicker than other electronic calendars because it's hosting so many calendars and feeding into so many different people that
I look at it as the way this works best is if you have multiple calendars that are funneled into Trumba and funneled out. And so unlike other calendar systems, which are usually just about your data or your calendar, like your personal calendar, this one really is meant to be the repository where you host 3 or 4 or 5 and you maintain them pretty fastidiously. So if you're not switching over to Trumba as your main calendar, I do think that the onus increases. It's arguable, but in my mind, because the scenario that they build is that you have multiple calendars and this is just the one place you go to look at them, the onus just increases.
That might change your mind, because it's possible to be a happy user of Trumba and never go to the website at all.
Fair. Through Outlook, if we'd gotten it to sync, we have a whole different demo. This is great! Look how awesome this is!
So if I want multiple editors, do all of those people have to be Trumba subscribers and pay the $40 a year?
They all have to be Trumba users, yeah. Yeah.
My family scenario, if my wife is willing to share a password, which we usually do, and I don't trust my wife to put up with my editing your own schedule, it's $40 when I'm done, so I can make 5 calendars.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you're willing to work it that way, you create 2 calendars and you can all maintain through the same account, 5, 8, 20, whatever. It's more that the way it's set up, note your primary calendar, there is really supposed to be like, you have a calendar. Right. Yeah.
But I'm thinking, trying to get a shared calendar that like you and your spouse can work with. There are a number of places where you can try that, but since they haven't thought about that, like, you won't have the change awareness. Like, oh yeah, so it'll be interesting as well.
Yeah.
And then they, on their pages, don't they give both an iCal feed and an RSS feed?
Yep. Both. So it is interesting. They really push towards the publish in our network model. So it's not, I would argue that you can do it. They don't make it nearly as easy to do as they make their other options.
Yeah, something works. If you're managing someone down, it works. You kind of mind how they work. And you know how the 5 different diffusion options, compare, pick the right one. And, for people with that kind of time, for the organization, it's good to be a good choice. I don't think it's a 5 and
What did they charge the organization that want to publish out?
So if you just want to publish out to Trumba, it's free. If you want to host it, I'm not sure. They list a way to do it on their website that's free, but Museum of Flight looks like somebody helped them with that. And if you look through the Museum of Flight's, if you look through their board members, there's a lot of Microsoft people on their board, so it's a high likelihood that Tad or Jeremy was just like, hey, can we do this on your website and show how cool it is?
yeah.
We'll have a plane.
That was a deal struck over time.
Yeah, or it certainly looks like one. It's very cool. Actually, I wonder, let me sign out and show that just because we're out of time and it's interesting. But if you go to the Museum of Flight.
Do you think people are willing to pay to use this service? Are people willing to pay?
Really interesting. Let me answer that 2 ways. I think it would be a more serious competitor if there weren't so many other options currently doing this for free. Like I look at Yahoo, there's a pretty good sharing scenario. I look at Hotmail, there's sharing scenario. Like there's a lot of free solutions to this problem. 2, I think a lot of wind will be taken out of their sails, and this is again very narcissistic of me to say when Outlook comes out with their sharing model. Because I look at how they've focused this as 3 ways of getting data out, sharing, publishing, and emailing, and they're the exact same 3 that Outlook has chosen. So if you're already an Outlook user, I think your incentive to buy Trumba to manage your personal life has actually decreased after Outlook 12 comes available. Now Outlook 12 has a long ramp, so there's a different question around that. They become worth paying for if every organization you use uses them. So your willingness to pay increases exponentially if all of a sudden all of the groups you belong to start using it, because it then becomes really easy to use Trumba and in fact really powerful to use Trumba. In terms of whether we see this as a serious competitor or not, I would say now there's no reason to. They're really interesting, so they're worth looking at and worth keeping an eye on because they do some things in a really interesting way. Longer term, they certainly have the potential to be, but if you look at their app, and this is just hearsay on my part, sort of looks like they want to be bought.
You know
schools? Because if they get the school calendar, I mean, if they are smart enough to go to public
Yep.
schools and say, we will give you this for free, they will immediately have.
It is certainly that, the three they mentioned, are churches, schools, and athletic groups. And museums is sort of an interesting one. You can note from their page that they've got, if I can bring this up, so they've got like the film festival, they've got the Lutheran school, they've got soccer teams, more churches, the community association. Those are their targets. They're very explicit about that. They've talked about that pretty openly. Having said that, they don't have a huge advertising or marketing budget, if any, really, at this point. So it would be worth a thought on how effective they're going to be, other than just door-to-door salesman type, because they're not marketing to those people. They don't have really a marketing budget around this. They're more trying to do this through word of mouth and social connections.
Going back to Yahoo for a second, so Yahoo has those two acquisitions, based on the name.
Odd Post and Bloomba, yeah. Odd Post is most interesting because of the way they do kind of client type email in a web browser. So Odd Post is really interesting from the email standpoint, not so much from calendaring. Bloomba, and others can correct me if they know more about Bloomba, I thought was mostly focused on search and really smart searching options. So I don't see as much for that, but others can correct me. I don't know as much about Bloomba. Cool.
I think we had a very successful Brownbag.
Thank you, everyone.
I think at the end of September we're thinking about Chandler and other competitors for a